Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is Biscuits and SEC Live. This is show number 80. And we keep hitting milestones here at Biscuits and SEC, which we can't thank you guys enough for reading along, for following along, and for watching the Biscuits and SEC Live podcast every week. Wednesday nights, 7 Eastern, 6 Central. I'm Bossman. That's Hammer. We got a lot to talk about tonight. And Hammer's got a hard out. We got to keep this sucker to about an hour. So we will be quick. Before we get started, as always, biscuitsandsec.com/newsletter. Be sure to sign up for the Morning Biscuits newsletter. Everything you want to know about what's going on around the SEC, right to your inbox for free every Wednesday during the offseason, and then on Mondays and on Fridays during the season. So, Hammer, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. Doing real good. I mean, we're finished with college basketball. College baseball's in full swing. The Masters is this weekend, one of my favorite weekends of the year. So I'm doing great. I'm excited.
Absolutely. We're chugging along. We're slowly getting more football news. We're past March Madness, like you said. We can get into that here. I think we can roll right into that, which is Final Four. We had no SEC teams in the Final Four this year, but Michigan just steamrolled everybody. I mean, we talked about it on last week's podcast. Arizona, they're the team of destiny. They scored 109 points on Arkansas. You and me both looking like absolute clowns.
Yeah.
Talking about Arizona being this team of destiny when we should have been saying it was Michigan because they played unbelievable. I think I put it in the newsletter. I don't remember what their exact I think it was like 13 or maybe 18 points that they were beating folks by on average throughout the tournament. 6 straight wins. It was ridiculous. They played incredible basketball. Congratulations to Dusty May and that squad. So give me your thoughts on Michigan, the Final Four, and we can kind of tie a bow on the college basketball season.
Yeah, 100%. As you said, we just picked the wrong team of destiny. I mean, Michigan was just mauling folks, and so was Arizona, but we just picked the wrong one because they had no trouble with Arizona, and UConn kept it close. I don't want to say it was like a bad game or anything, but it very much felt the entire time like Michigan was in control. I don't know what the exact statistic was, but every time I looked up, I was not fully dialed in. I was at was grabbing a beer with a friend, so the game was on. We were watching it and chatting, but Michigan was just in the lead the whole time. Like, UConn cut it to 4, UConn cut it to 6, but like they never. Yeah, it was never that close. Yeah, it was just all right. We're credit to UConn. They kept fighting, but Michigan, it just always kind of kept them at arm's length. Like, all right, kind of, hey, nothing to see here. We're going to handle our business, and they did. And as you brought up, they did more than that during the tournament, crushing people, and they did that in the regular season. Losing only 3 ball games. So that's a heck of a season, a heck of a turnaround for Dusty May in just his second season. He's an Indiana grad, so that's funny to me. Indiana fans have plenty to celebrate. They won a football championship, something, my alma mater I can only dream about. But that has to sting that an Indiana alum, with Indiana, I mean, their program's been in shambles for decades, it's seemingly, and he goes to Michigan in 2 years after what Juwan Howard left. To get them to a title in 2 years, it just shows that this guy can coach.
Yeah, an interesting thing on that front, we've talked about it a lot on this show, and you bring up the Indiana connection. In the portal era in college football, Curt Cignetti showed that it could be done in a year, a turnaround, right? Get to the playoffs. He gets to the playoffs in a year. In 2 years, at a place like Indiana, he's winning national titles. Michigan, very different. I mean, they've had a good basketball program, kind of been up and down, but they've been there, right? For a long time. Kind of going through different spurts. But yeah, Juwan Howard era was not great, but Dusty Howard comes in 2 years, boom, national title. Can be done. So in the portal era, doesn't matter the sport. You don't have excuses. You have 2 years. And let's see what you got. And you better be making significant progress. And you better be on the cusp of, especially at a program like a Michigan, right? Or just name one, an LSU, or Texas A&M comes open, Texas, whatever. These big programs, especially, LSU is a great example right now. We got Lane Kiffin. You better be making progress with a $50 million roster this year, And in year 2, this sucker better be ready to roll to a national title.
Yeah, I agree. And there's probably a lot of schools out there wishing he didn't win it all, including maybe his alma mater, just in case they could ever lure him away. I mean, Michigan's a great job. So again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. But I feel like now that he's done that, I think he actually said this, which I don't know if you saw, not to sidetrack us, but he said somebody asked him about the UNC job, I think, and he's like, "I'm not interested in any college coaching opportunities."
Yeah, I did. He's not doing it. Yeah, NBA may come calling.
I just thought that was. I mean, yep. He could have not even known what he was saying, right? It just said, "I'm not interested in other." But I saw some people pointing that out. They're like, "Well, he did say college," but anyway, I'll let him enjoy it, right? He's a good coach. I don't want to rag on him and say he's going to leave because I don't know why he would. He's got a great thing going at Michigan.
I doubt he's going to leave, but those guys are super calculated. I think he knew exactly what he was saying. So I think he's leaving that potential open for the future. But I think it did two things. It left the potential open for the future, and it also shut down the UNC rumors, which had been going on since Hubert Davis left.
Yeah, right.
So, all right. Congratulations to Michigan. Don't need to talk too much more about the Final Four. No SEC teams in it. Not our thing if there's not SEC teams in it, but we will touch on it and talk a little bit about it because obviously biggest story of the last week. Other than a couple other things that are going on, this was another huge story I think we need to touch on, which was we've talked a little bit about this. President Trump had the roundtable a couple weeks ago. Coach Saban was there, a few others, Tiger Woods, Condoleezza Rice, a bunch of random people are just in the room.
Yeah.
But he had mentioned that maybe an executive order was coming, another one. He'd already done one. This will be the second one. And so, this one, it's 5 for 5. Okay. So it's 5 years to play 5, and it is one transfer only. And then if you do transfer a second time, you have to sit out a year. Basically goes back to the old NCAA rules. Essentially too, we talked about Senator Tuberville's Pine Box legislation last week. This basically just codifies that, his legislation. So give me some of your initial thoughts on this executive order. Does it matter? What's going to happen with it? Does it change college athletics as the White House and others are saying?
No. I don't think it really changes much of anything. I think the only thing you brought up right at the end there that is slightly interesting about this is that it does mirror essentially Tuberville's legislation. So I guess it just signals to me that there's potential momentum behind this, at least from the executive branch. Now, what that means for getting through the House and the Senate, I don't know, but at least there's somebody other than Tuberville kind of backing these ideas. But the actual executive order itself, I think, means absolutely nothing, which we've detailed on this, podcast and in the newsletter before, because Trump issued one of these last July, I think, and absolutely nothing has been done with regards to what he said needed to get done in the executive order. So, again, I like the idea, great, but as of now, it's just kind of a signature on a piece of paper that, somebody has to do something about, and I don't know who's actually going to do anything about it.
That's kind of where I'm at with it. So this, I accidentally put that quote up. I was trying to move it around here on our board, but there's a couple things I want to mention with this. First, I have to show this graphic because I made it. I had to upload it here real quick. But the iconic mugshot here of President Trump had to be used here. I think it's just a funny picture, and the scowl cracks me up always. 5 years to play 5 seasons. One transfer that he got to sit out, subsequent transfers. The thing about that is that it's not Congress stepping in, right? And these executive orders, they always get challenged in court. So it's up to the courts, essentially. This is going to get, folks are going to sue, saying, you're kind of capping our earnings potential. I should be able to transfer as many times as I want, just like a regular student. Why do I not get to do that? So these will be challenged in court, and we'll see if it holds up. That's why they keep going to Congress to say we have to codify this in law by Congress, because otherwise this is just going to keep getting continually challenged. And there's no enforcement mechanism essentially. So that's kind of why I don't think it has much teeth, at least right now. The other thing to mention about it, though, is that, again, this is bringing more attention to it. So like you said, maybe there's more momentum. And if you noticed on Twitter, after this executive order was put down, there was multiple SEC folks, ACC commissioner, Greg Sankey put out a statement, Hunter Yurachek put out a statement. I mean, everybody was putting out statements, all of them in support of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's very interesting, right? Because of what we just said. You get 5 years to play 5, and you get 1 transfer, and then you have to sit out. Them coming out and saying these things and putting out positive statements in support of this tells me that there might be some movement in the direction of let's get back to this, or some sort of framework that is similar to this. So to me, that's a positive development, because I like this. Honestly, I do. I think 5 years to play 5. I don't want any more 28-year-olds playing. I'm done with the COVID stuff, done with 7 years in college. I think that we should go back to some of how it was. The pendulum swung too far. Now let's get it back. We don't have to go all the way back. We're not going to, stop paying players and all that sort of stuff. But we do have to come to a happy medium. And right now, that's not where we are.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, one thing to note, I believe it said in there, the 1 transfer was as an undergraduate, right? Mm-hmm. So similarly, the old graduate loophole would stand, which again, as you brought up, it's like, okay, so we're bringing the pendulum back, but it's not all the way back. You have basically 1 more free transfer than you would have before, right? You get 1 transfer, and then if you grad transfer, if you wanted it, you could take it, as opposed to the now free for all, anytime, anywhere. So I like that, because again, it's like, I don't think I wouldn't mind going back to that, but I don't think we can at this point. But maybe, 1 free 1 with a grad transfer, that seems very reasonable. I mean, if you can play at 3 colleges in 5 years, like, that's probably enough.
Yeah, I would say so. Our friend Mike Huseman joins us tonight from Offseason After Dark. Ageism, you can't deny Max Johnson a chance to play QB. Same thing with TJ Finley. Same thing with Trinidad Chambliss. Just go on down the line. There's a big lobby against this, Mike.
I love Max Johnson because he played 2 seasons at A&M.
Yeah.
He was playing behind a horrendous offensive line and a horrendous Jimbo Fisher offense, and he just got his teeth kicked in over and over and over again, to the point where I believe in both seasons, neither of which he began the year as the starter, he was then injured for the rest of the year by however many games he had filled in for. So I love the kid, and I hate what happened to him when he left and went to UNC. But yeah, we got to deny him. I mean, he needs to go to the Birmingham Stallions or something if he wants to keep playing, or the Alouettes in the CFL. I support his dreams to continue playing. It just, I mean, he beat A&M in an LSU uniform in Tiger Stadium in 2021. 2021, the final game of Ed O. I mean, what are we talking about? He can't play college football anymore. I'm sorry. He can't.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. So, all right, last thing on this, we mentioned some of the positives. Here are some of the potential negatives. All right. So this was from Chris Hummer with CBS Sports. So I just want to read this quote real quick, because there was kind of 2 sides to this. There was the public facing, what the ADs and others were saying out loud, and then the behind the scenes of the folks who actually work in this and kind of what they were saying. All right. So this is from the article. When the White House issued an executive order last week to save college sports, one SEC general manager couldn't help but laugh. A few of his coaches called, asking what the order meant. The coaches wanted to know what changed. The answer, at least for now, is not much, unless Congress acts or courts uphold it. It's just going to lead to more lawsuits and BS, the GM said. It changes absolutely nothing to me. The coaches were like, what do you mean? It's an executive order, but it doesn't do anything. The most powerful man in the world issues something and you're like, whatever. that's what the sport has become. Yeah, it kind of goes to what we were saying earlier, right? Like the executive orders don't carry as much weight as a congressional law or anything of that nature. So we're still kind of in limbo. This pushes the ball forward a little bit. It gives us positive momentum in a direction to try to get some guardrails around this and to try to get college sports back on stable footing. But in practicality right now, the folks who are working in the sport are saying this is not going to do much.
Yeah, which again just echoes what we said of like sounds good. Maybe there's some momentum, but it's just not enforceable as it currently stands.
Right. Rick, this is true, but it wasn't. I think a lot of them were just upperclassmen. It was like, juniors and seniors, a couple of grad transfers, that sort of thing. So under this, a lot of them would still be eligible. Now, there's a couple, of course, who I think were past that as well, and those kids wouldn't have been eligible. But I think that Curt Cignetti's strategy there would still stand for the most part in terms of who's in the portal. It would be juniors, seniors, and grad transfers, though it might change a little bit because a lot of those guys probably wouldn't have been in the portal anyway because it might have been their third transfer. And if that was the case, they're sitting out or even their second transfer, right? So it would dwindle. The portal would not have as many kids in it every single year as we've seen, and the portal just gets flooded basically.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on now. I'm super excited about this. We have been talking about this for a bit. This was a great idea, built off some of the things that we talked about a couple weeks ago. Our friend Mike Huseman helped us build this out in terms of kind of what this might look like. Super League. All right, we talked about the NCAA, everything that's been going on. There's been a lot of back and forth. Is the SEC and the Big Ten going to break away? Are they going to form a Super League? Well, we decided to form our own. We decided to actually do a thought experiment here and think it through. And what would Bossman and what would Hammer's Super League look like? We're going to release this in two different parts because there's just a lot to talk about here, a lot to go through. And in this first part tonight, we're going to talk about the Northwest, the Midwest, and then the Northeast. And then next week, it actually might be in 2 weeks because Hammer's he won't be here next week, but in 2 weeks, we'll then go through and do the Southwest, do the Central, which essentially is like, Kansas and below, and then we'll do the Southeast. And now we'll talk a little bit about this, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, it's all regional, okay? Hammer came up with his kind of criteria. I came up with my criteria, and then we formulated it. So we did this. We had a little bit of structure, and then we did it independently as to how we kind of set this up. So here is the parameters in general that we gave. 6 divisions, 8 teams per division, 48 total teams, and then there is relegation. All right, so this made us make some hard choices. We didn't go with 60. We went with 48 because that made us make some tough choices and as to who might go into relegation first. Now, we'll talk about the relegation in a couple weeks after we reveal all the teams because there will be some obvious ones that are left out. But tonight, we can have some fun in just talking about, okay, why did you set yours up this way? Why did you talk about your division, this way? And why did you decide to go with these teams versus maybe I went with some of these teams? So all in all, we hope you guys enjoy this. This is going to be a lot of fun, I think. And if you guys, talk to us in the comments. If we say something ridiculous or you would have added a team here instead, or you think that was, this was a dumb way to set it up, this was a great way to set it up, whatever you think, let us know. And you can kind of shape this as we go along as well. So, all right. Hammer, I'm going to release yours first here, okay, on the West Coast. And I did Northwest, okay, and I'll talk about why I did that in a little bit. But first, the first big reveal of the Super League, the Biscuits and SEC, College Football Superleague, Hammer's West Coast division. Talk us through this.
Yeah, so this will bear out with the next few that we reveal here with, the first half of our 48, so the first 24 teams. But I do think, and just talking pre-show a little bit, that you and I went about this in a little bit of a different way. So my thought process was mostly, I guess kind of twofold. I wanted, or maybe even a little more than twofold. I'm speaking incorrectly there, but the things I was factoring in was some regionality, at least as best as I could, trying to restore to some degree historical conferences, which goes hand in hand with the regionality because that's what they were based on, 30 plus years ago. And then sort of, I guess, a very subjective personal opinion of mine that combined like want to buy in from fans and administration, as well as just sort of national, interest, eyeballs. Do people care about football at this particular institution, both within the university and then outside of the university? And so this is what I came up with for the West Coast, right? You kind of went Northwest, which is hyper regional. I spread this kind of way out because looking at the West Coast in my head and in the algorithms I was using, there weren't a lot of teams, frankly, that I thought qualified to make the top 48. So I kind of went with a hodgepodge of some old, Pac-12 with Washington, Oregon, even Pac-10, Washington, Oregon, SC, and then Arizona State. And then I think both of the Utah schools have earned the right to be in there. And that's a fair point, Mike. So Colorado over UCLA is a bold take. Maybe it's the Coach Prime effect, I suppose. But it seems like Colorado's investing and cares. I don't know what UCLA is doing. They're not even playing at the Rose Bowl anymore. They just fired their coach who, made sure everybody know that they played in LA. And I think Chesney's a good coach, but we'll see. I mean, who knows? I don't like where that program has been since Jim Mora left. And similarly with Cal, I mean, we'll get to this later because I think you disagree with me on this, but I just don't think Cal has any buy-in from like fans and administration. And like we talked about, there's relegation. So if Colorado stinks it up and UCLA is great, boom, switch them out. UCLA's in or Cal's in. Cal's got a new coach too, so just like UCLA. So maybe they hit and they'll earn their way in, which is of course a pipe dream. I mean, relegation is not happening, but in our scenario, it would. So yeah, that's kind of my my thought process on it again, and in my kind of like internal subjective relevancy metric. Like, man, even though they haven't been great under Coach Prime, they've been better. But right, TV market, they're drawing eyeballs. They do have pretty good attendance at their games. If you look at Folsom on a Saturday, like it's kind of rocking, at least half the year, while they're playing decent. And UCLA and Cal are just complete ghost towns. And I don't think anybody watches their games, to be honest with you. But that said, Cal at least has had some decent wins over the last few years. So, and UCLA beat Penn State last year. So never forget that. But that's my West Coast right there.
Okay.
And it's not all coastal, but it's everybody on this half of the country.
That's right. So one more time, this is Hammer's West Coast: Washington, Oregon, USC, the Utes, BYU, Arizona State, and Colorado. So Hammer went West Coast. I decided to go a little more regional, like you said. I went Northwest. This whole thing is going to make hypocrites out of both of us because you're going to justify some teams in a way and you're going to justify other teams in a different way. And you're going to justify, so like, just take these with a grain of salt. This is a fun thought experiment, okay? And hammer us if you catch us where we're doing that. Let us know. But here is my Northwest to reveal, okay? Washington State, Oregon State, Stanford, Cal, the Utes of Utah, and BYU. All right. So for me, it was a couple of things, right? I wanted to kind of like you go back to old conferences or try to get close to that. All right. The other thing that I really wanted to do, I did want to go hyper regional because I still believe that despite where we are in college football, that this sport grew and grew and grew and became it gave people that diehard fandom because of the connection to school and then regionality and then the regional rivalries, right? And so I want to get back to that as much as possible. And I think that those rivalries make the sport better. And yeah, new rivalries are being formed somewhat in these new conferences, these big super conferences, but maybe it's nostalgia. But I really think that getting back to these old rivalries where the hate burns deep is the best way to go. And so for me, in my Northwest here, look at all these rivalries, baby. I mean, you have the Apple Cup right up there. I will always call it the Civil War, Oregon and Oregon State. You've got the band is on the field with Stanford and Cal, and you got the Holy War with Utah and BYU. So, and that's super regional, right? Like most of those are, I guess what, maybe a couple hour plane ride, barely, if that, I think for Utah, maybe the furthest away, or BYU to any of these schools. So, none of these crazy plane rides across the country for these teams. This is in their region. All of these, teams have a rival in this conference, and all of them also have history, right? BYU has been very good at times. They've been very good recently. Utah, same thing, been very good now for a long time. Washington has recently been in the college football playoff. Wazoo is kind of, up and down. Oregon, blue blood at this point. I know they haven't won one yet, but they're in it all the time. There's a couple other schools here. I understand why you left Stanford out, why you might have left Cal out. But Cal's got great football history too. Not that long ago were they good. Cal, same thing. Aaron Rodgers, Marshawn Lynch, Jared Goff. They've had, and recently Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman winner, transferred to Indiana, but he started at Cal. So I don't think Cal's that far off from getting back pretty quickly. And they are investing resources in it. You have Ron Rivera out there who's trying to bring them back and help them as the kind, the overseer, kind of like Andrew Luck is at Stanford. So I'm excited about this one. I really thought when I was looking through them, I was like, man, this one, there's a couple others too, as we get through this year. The Midwest is going to be fun too, but this was my Northwest. Give me some of your thoughts.
So my first thought is truly, I love it. We disagree on it, but I totally get your reasoning, and I have nostalgia about those programs too. And getting those games back would be awesome. My opinion is some of that is just, unrealistic. If we're limiting this to 48 teams, I think there's some better options out there than a Stanford or Cal or Oregon State. But again, I'm not going to hate on that conference. It looks awesome, right? It would be awesome. I hated what happened to the Pac-12, and I hated that Oregon State and Washington State got left out. And even though Stanford and Cal are still power conference teams, I hate that they're in the ACC. I'm being harsh on those schools because I don't think they deserve to get in, my top 48. If we're paddling offshore and we've only got room for 48 schools in there, they get left on shore for me, but I'm not going to fault your thought process and your kind of nostalgic feelings, as well as like hope that, like you said, maybe they could, Ron Rivera's at Cal. They just hired the Oregon defensive coordinator, and Stanford's got Andrew Luck, and I don't know what Oregon State's doing. But Washington State has been decent in recent years, even despite all of the turmoil that they have been in. So I like it. I think it's going to lead you to leave some teams out, down the road that that I've got in, and I've got my reasons for it. But hey, for now, love it.
Yeah. We'll talk about those. I think most of those are going to come on the next show here. But one thing I will say too. All right, you said Oregon State, right? Oregon State, kind of what are they doing? Wazoo, kind of been a little rough, since they got left out. I think if you bring them back in, Cal, I think is a good example of this too. Stanford even as well with the whole ACC BS. But if you bring those schools back into in this case, a division, right? A division of the Super League. If you bring those schools back into a legitimate division in a legitimate, like you're in, I think they would quickly start to come back because they got left out in the cold in this last round of realignment. I think they kind of got left by the wayside, except Oregon State had one good year, right? When they brought DJ Ukulele in. DJ Ukulele. And he played very well for them that year, right? And they had a good season. But other than that, I think because they got left out in the cold a little bit, they're really standing on the outside looking in and have been. Now, if you put them back in a division like this where there's legitimacy and you're going up against Oregon and you're going up against Washington and some of these other programs, Utah, which puts money into the program, BYU, which obviously, puts some money into the program. I think quickly they would start to turn it up and figure it out. That's a pipe dream, but I do think that putting them back in would be helpful for them to come back.
It would. No, it absolutely would. So you got relegation. They can get in.
They can get, yeah.
Again, right. That's why, we'd say that's a pipe dream. In our scenario, it's possible. In reality, whenever this comes down, I don't think it will be, but it ought to be because there's certainly teams that would be chomping at the bit to get in, and there would be teams that deserve to get the heck out. So,
for sure. All right, let's move on here. I want to get now to the Midwest. We will keep this rolling. So I'll go first on this one. And I don't think we're going to have to do too much else because we'll talk about this in a minute. But the Midwest Super League, Bossman's division here, the Midwest division, I got Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, Notre Dame, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Indiana. And man, same with this conference, like this division, like this Michigan, Ohio State, don't need to say much. It's one of the best rivalries in all of sports. It is heated. There is hatred on both sides. It matters so much that Ohio State fans were calling for Ryan Day's head for losing to Michigan 4 straight times before he wins the national title. And even still, they kind of don't love the fact that he lost a couple times straight to Michigan until he gets a win this past season. But Michigan State, same thing. Michigan State, they don't like each other. Notre Dame doesn't like any of these teams, right? Nobody in this division likes Notre Dame, okay?
No.
So hatred all around for Notre Dame. Notre Dame hates all of them and wants to beat all of them too. Minnesota, Wisconsin, you got Paul Bunyan's axe, all right? Illinois, Indiana, all these teams, they're very close in proximity, and they all like to beat up on each other. A lot of history between a lot of these teams as well, okay? And Indiana, though one of the worst NCAA football team program in all of history, is now a national champion and is on the scene and could be a very solid program for a long time to come. And then Michigan won the previous national title, and Notre Dame's in the hunt every single year. All right. And if you have this little division here, plus Ohio State in it every single year, one of the greatest programs of all time. I think with this division too, and Michigan State hasn't been long. Michigan State was in a college football playoff not long ago.
Yeah.
Okay. So Wisconsin easily could come back. Wisconsin is a great program as well. And I think in this, Illinois is doing well too. Look, Minnesota has been okay. I think they could be great if they put some more resources into it and are battling the likes of these teams. So that is my Midwest. And then I'll just release it here. This is also your Midwest. We independently came up with these same, not different, 8 teams in the Midwest here. This division would be an absolute blast.
It really would. And everything you said was spot on. So just real quick, I will answer Mike here. I don't know about Alex. I do have them in a different region. That probably will be in our next episode. I don't remember where the next one we're doing today.
So some mystery here, Mike, is 24 teams today, right? Part 1. Part 2, we'll have another 24 that we release. All right. That's going to be the Southwest, the Central, and then the Southeast. So we'll have some suspense here because some teams you may be in our divisions, next week or in 2 weeks for part 2, but also some are going to get left out. And so we'll talk about all of that as we go on. But for after this episode, there might be some mystery as to who's in and who's out for the next week.
Yes. But in terms of what we're looking at here, with the Midwest Conference, I guess, if we're calling it that, is, that one felt pretty simple to me. Again, thinking of, not to tip my hand too much, but thinking of regionality and history here. Of course, all these, with the exception of Notre Dame, are classic Big Ten schools, long-time Big Ten programs. I sort of, Mike, to give you a hint, have kind of rebuilt the Big Eight a little bit down the line. So that might give a hint of where some of these other kind of Midwestern programs fall. But in terms of this one, how we came up with it, like you said, independently, these same teams, it just felt like these fit the best. They are, regionally speaking, on top of each other, essentially. In this region, I guess, if you are looking for somebody that's been left out, Purdue doesn't appear to be on either one of our lists, and maybe maybe they made it to a different conference, but it wouldn't make a ton of sense geographically or historically. So my Boilermakers, Purdue Pete, is left outside the door. It would appear. Again, we'll see down the road, but this would be a killer division, right? You brought up Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota, way back in the day, historically a great program. Over the last 50 years, the modern era, they've been a very solid program. Never terrible. Never
Minnesota
great.
8-4 is what I've heard them called.
Yeah. But I think it would be awesome. And there's another one, right, that seemingly would fit in this division well, that's not quite making the cut, at least as of now. So, again, if you're limiting it to 8 and you're trying to focus it regionally on the Midwest, I think these are, you could nitpick at certain ones, I think, but generally speaking, like Michigan, Notre Dame, Indiana, Michigan State, Ohio State, Minnesota, Wisconsin, like that's pretty much like, not in terms of success on the field, but just like those are blue blood Big Ten Midwest programs.
Right. And for the most part, other than, Notre Dame, they've been the teams at the top half of the Big Ten, the normal Big Ten. Okay. Not this Frankenstein Big Ten that we have now, but the original Big Ten, they have been at the upper half of the Big Ten, not Indiana, but Indiana now has been, right? Illinois now is. They've been playing very well under Brett Bielema. So, and Michigan State, I think, could quickly come back as well, right? Same thing. Northwestern is a good one, Mike, to bring up. They could quickly come in, get into that division because they are putting some resources behind the football program, and they're building that stadium, which looks beautiful. And if they start winning a little bit, maybe they get into it, or maybe they're in one next week. But obviously, that's the one where they would fit the best. So, okay, let's keep moving here. Let's go what I call Northeast, what you are calling the Eastern. So we'll go to you first. Here is Hammer's Eastern Seaboard Division in the Biscuits and SEC College Football Superleague. So walk us through it here.
Yes. So I think pretty similar to my thoughts on the West Coast, Northwest, where you and I varied. You kind of stuck hyper regional, and I looked at the hyper regional programs that were out there and said, no to a handful of them. And so I had to expand my boundaries. And on this one, it was Eastern Seaboard. So obviously we'll talk about the SEC or Southeastern Division and kind of how that splits off in our next episode. But there's a lot of really good programs kind of concentrated in the Southeast, generally speaking, region. And so
Are you saying it just means more?
It does. So in order to compensate for that, I gave up a little bit of the regionality and kind of went with, instead of a northeastern quadrant, we're going more eastern seaboard, and we're basically taking I don't know. Again, we're going to offend some people here, but we're taking the bigger programs out of the ACC that have the at least historical connection, and then we're inserting Penn State and South Carolina as well, to give you, kind of up and down the eastern seaboard list here. And, again, I think there's some other teams, obviously, in the state of North Carolina that have a good argument here. But, again, we only got 48 teams, so this is kind of what I came up with for, for this general region. I think all these teams are relatively close by. Maybe, honestly, the one that only doesn't, in terms of like geography, that doesn't fit so good, I guess, would maybe be Louisville, but they've been in the ACC, so there is that, connection to Virginia Tech, Clemson, Carolina, Miami, Florida State. Again, so we're keeping basically the ACC or some of those teams, and then obviously South Carolina is down the road and in this, in a state that already has an ACC program, and then Penn State is, surrounded by ACC programs. So somewhat regional there.
Yes, no doubt. Mike, that's an interesting comment. Boston College is a very interesting one. It is wild when you look at the map of teams. The Northeast is really, there's just not a lot of teams up there that have been good. It's hard. It's kind of a stretch to even say that Penn State is in the Northeast. Like Pennsylvania, not everybody considers Pennsylvania to really be in the Northeast. But you kind of got to stretch the Northeast. And like Hammer was saying, there's a ton that are concentrated in the Southeast.
Yeah, I mean, small liberal arts colleges are typically not football powerhouses. And the Northeast is filled with small liberal arts colleges that are
right.
Give you a great education, and they've got a good lax program, or they've got a good, Big East basketball program. But football, there's not a ton of teams up there that even field a Power 5, team, and then let alone within that have had a lot of success.
Right.
So that's kind of why I just kind of morphed it and tried to keep it somewhat regional, but again, was looking around at like, okay, who's relevant, who's investing, who has engagement outside of campus and on campus, like who cares about their football program. And that's kind of, how I figured that one out.
Yes. I think it's an interesting one for sure. And mine is quite different. Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to add one more thing before you reveal yours. I would be very excited in that reality that South Carolina and Clemson would be in the same conference, because I think those two schools, I think it's such an underrated rivalry.
Yeah.
And maybe part of the reason it's underrated is because they've been, Clemson's been, most of the Dabo tenure dominating them, but also it's kind of like Georgia Tech, where it's like, we hate them, but we got our conference rivals. And then 1 week a year, we hate this program. But if Clemson and Carolina were in the same conference, then it's like, oh, okay, we got a lot of, benchmarks against each other. Oh, well, we beat them, you beat, and you're competing for the same title, the same conference. It's like that game would go from being an out of conference, like, oh, we want to beat them because we hate them, to hopefully like there'd be real, stakes on the line. Like, no, we have to beat them, and then we'll, win this division, as opposed to, again, just, what it has become.
This is a fair, interesting point here, Mike. And because then that's part of it, right? You got to think about TV markets and all that sort of stuff. And stay tuned. We will see what happens there. All right.
Don't underestimate the Starkville media market.
And the reach of the Bulldogs program. All right. No disparagement Dak Prescott, great ambassador, Cowboys quarterback. There's grow the game. You go to Starkville. Okay. This one's gonna be fun. We can talk back and forth about this a little bit because this is the one, at least in part one, where we differed the most. Your Eastern Seaboard versus my Northeast looks very different, and I think this one may come back to haunt me a little bit in the future. We'll see. But again, I went hyper regional here and tried to think about rivalries, and rivalries are here. Okay, Penn State, Pitt. Hate each other. Pitt, West Virginia, backyard brawl. UNC and Virginia. There's a name for that rivalry. I cannot. Is it the South's oldest rivalry?
I think it's the South, and then you've got Auburn. Auburn, Georgia is the deep South, but yeah, Virginia, North Carolina is the South's oldest rivalry.
South's oldest rivalry. So for y'all not, super steeped in ACC history here, UNC and Virginia absolutely don't like each other at all. Despise each other. Virginia Tech. They're very friendly. They love each other very much. Kentucky, Louisville, same thing. Can't stand each other. Okay. So none of these teams can stand each other, for at least have one rival that they cannot stand. And then you also have I think, by the way, I know we're doing football here, and it would look a little different if there was basketball, but this basketball conference would be friggin' awesome. Okay. Virginia, North Carolina. Virginia's been very good for a while now. Tony Bennett, and now whoever their coach is now, the guy from VCU, he's done a great job. They're back. UNC will quickly be back. They will not stay down for long. Kentucky is a blue blood. Louisville has been very good for a long time. Penn State was a blip on the radar. They had a pretty good year a couple years ago. Pitt has had a traditionally pretty good basketball program. All that. So fun basketball division here for the Northeast in the Super League. But this is what I came up. So again, let's compare notes here. Penn State, we both had Penn State, and we both had Virginia Tech. And then after that, it's different except for UNC. So we had three of the same teams in it.
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise we had three different ones. So again, very different in the way that we approached this, and that you really did expand your boundaries. And I went pretty hyper local, and you have definitely rivalries in it as well. I mean, like you said, Clemson and South Carolina, big rivalry. Clemson, Miami rivalry. Miami, Florida State, big rivalry there. Florida State and Clemson carrying over a lot of those ACC rivalries.
The James Franklin Bowl.
Yes, right. That could quickly become a rivalry.
If they were in the same conference, yeah. I think it would be, because I think.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it would be a rivalry to James Franklin at least.
Yeah,
and I think that but yeah, I think again it's hard since we're not revealing everything on this one show. But I think for me, it is a challenge again, because I like your thought process. There's obviously teams on here like Pitt and West Virginia. Or our friend Hugh's been pointing out here, Duke or University of Virginia, that didn't show up thus far on my list, and based on the regions we have left, may or may not. But man, you just got to start making some judgment calls here, because West Virginia's been down, but obviously has a good history. Pitt also great history. Dan Marino, and has been pretty good lately with. The Nard Dog, Narduzzi, mm-hmm. And similarly UVA, right? They had obviously a very good year this past year. ACC regular season champs, winning double-digit games. But for the last decade, let's say, it was really, really down in the dumps. But they've had their ups and downs. They're not, before Signetti got there, Indiana, right? They're not the losingest program in football history. Neither's Pitt, neither's West Virginia, neither's Duke. Like they've got some skins on the wall. And I think that's one of those things where you start looking around, and like you said, I might be hypocritical here and using different arguments for different schools, but yeah. You just got to start making judgment calls, because there's 65 Power 4 or teams,
something like that,
and we're narrowing it down to 48. So
right,
pretty good amount of these teams that have reasonable cases don't make it.
Yep, that's exactly right. And Mike, I get it. I'm a Duke hater, whatever. Yeah, okay, sue me. Put my hand up, Duke hater right here. Well, the other part, at the end of the day, look, there's an argument to be made. Duke has been better, I would say, right here. Okay, bring mine back up. Duke has been better than West Virginia lately in football.
Better than Virginia Tech?
Yeah, right.
Since Beamer left, I mean, the last decade, they've even
gone toe-to-toe with them probably, right? So,
sure.
Yeah, I think there's an argument to be made there. However, in the long arc of college football history, the Duke-UNC rivalry, as I was trying to really hone in on rivalries here, Duke-UNC it's basketball, baby. It has mattered in basketball, but it hasn't always mattered that much in football. Whereas Pitt and West Virginia, I want the backyard brawl back. And that's why I ended up going with West Virginia over Duke, even though Duke definitely has an argument to be made over, like you said, Virginia Tech. Definitely in recent memory, West Virginia, they have, especially over the course of the last 4 to 5 seasons, there's an argument Duke has been the better program in football. But the history argument got to me here, and wanting the backyard brawl back with Pitt and West Virginia in the same division where it matters, right? You were talking about Clemson and South Carolina. How much more would that even matter if those two rivals who do hate each other are playing in the same division where it could matter for a championship on the line or a spot in the college football playoff or what have you? It just ratchets it up even more. So to have the backyard brawl with that ratcheted up, I think would be a ton of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's yours is kind of, again, if you're thinking back to historical, like I mentioned, we'll see some of my next week's or 2 weeks from now divisions will be very sort of traditional Big 8 Southwest Conference-esque programs and vibes. Your division there was old traditional Big East heavy, with trying to get it pulled back up here. With Pitt, West Virginia, Virginia Tech, Louisville, obviously Kentucky to Carolina and UVA or ACC, and Penn State was long time independent before joining the Big Ten. But Pitt, West Virginia, the backyard brawl. Well, that came from the Big East back in the day, right? When they were in the same conference. And then, it's crazy to think, but people forget, but Virginia Tech was Big East.
Big East. Yeah.
For a long time, until early 2000s, if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a throwback to that league that is technically still kicking, but has seen a lot of different iterations over the years. But traditional Big East with West Virginia, Pitt, Virginia Tech, Miami, Louisville, those schools would be cool to bring back, because RIP.
Yes, RIP. All right, that is it for part 1 of our Super League here. Again, these were the parameters here for those of you who just joined us. 6 divisions, 8 teams per division, 48 total teams, and there is European-style relegation, which we think would just be so much fun. Probably will never get implemented because nobody wants to get relegated. That's a lot of ad dollars and all sorts of dollars that get lost if you do get relegated. However, it would be a lot of fun. So, especially for the fan experience. So we'll talk about that next week or in 2 weeks when Hammer's back. Hammer's going to miss next week's show, so we're going to figure out something else to do in the meantime. But Super League Part 2 will come out in 2 weeks. We'll release our next 24 teams. That will be the Southwest, kind of generally the Central, and then the Southeast as well. And so we'll have a lot more fun talking about that. And then also we'll go through some of the teams that we left out. As some of you mentioned, you were noticing some teams that were not in some of these different divisions. So if they're not in the ones in 2 weeks, we'll talk about those as to why we relegated them, et cetera. And you guys can clown us or agree. So going to be a lot more fun to go through on part 2. All right, we got a hard out here in about 5 minutes, so we're going to be fairly quick here. I just want to talk briefly about SEC baseball, give an update here. We've got a ton going on in SEC baseball. This was the graphic from weekend 4 results from SEC baseball. Go follow the @SEC baseball account. Really, do I talk?
That's fantastic.
Love it.
Glad we could do that.
We did our job.
Mike, what we ought to do. So we'll release some some graphics, of course, over social media, so you can see that our at least first 24, and then when we do the final reveal. But very open to you doing this exercise on your own and doing it on Offseason After Dark, or we could bring it on to SEC After Dark, whatever you want to do. But I'm curious to see what you would come up with, because I think, as I said, 48 teams, you start having to cut some teams that actually make a lot of sense. So I'd be curious to see your list.
And that's also, again, that's why we did it. We wanted to make it hard. We wanted to have to make some tough decisions. We didn't just want to go with 60. We wanted to make some tough decisions and to have relegation. So I think it could be fun to do a roundtable. Like, we get done with this and we do a roundtable on SEC After Dark the next night, discussing kind of what we went through and, talking about what everybody else thinks on the SEC After Dark channel. So, all right, to continue here, SEC baseball, we had the home teams went 2-6 last weekend. So the away teams were just going crazy last weekend. Some interesting things, man. Alabama's just on a tear right now. They go 2-1 against Oklahoma. I think they've won 8 straight, maybe 9 straight, which is super impressive. Texas just keeps rolling too, and Georgia's also on a roll. They went to Starkville and beat Mississippi State, swept them 3-0, which is insanely impressive. So some big series coming up this weekend. We got Texas A&M. Texas is heading to College Station. There's a ton of rain in the forecast, so hopefully they get it all in, but we will see. I'm not sure that that's going to happen. But
you looking for a ticket? You thinking about going?
I'm thinking about it. Yep, it would be great to go. In fact, I'm supposed to go, and I'm not sure if it's going to happen or not. So we will see if it ends up happening. But I would love to go. I have plans to go, and would love to see this series, because, or at least one game of this series, because Schlossnagle, it's his first time coming back to Olsen Field, to Bluebell Park. And as anyone who follows college baseball knows, Jim Schlossnagle left like a snake to Austin, bitter rivals, after leading Texas A&M to the College World Series final against Tennessee a couple years ago, and ultimately losing. But Aggies have no love lost for Jim Schlossnagle, let's put it that way. And so his first time coming back to College Station is going to be vitriolic, maybe. He will get a warm welcome back to Bluebell Park, I think. So that's going to be a fascinating series. And then some other good series here. We got Georgia and Florida, Alabama, Arkansas. Arkansas needing to they're kind of limping along here right now. So they
very much so
to get a series win over Alabama, who has been red hot lately. And then 2 other teams who are kind of hanging on by a thread here, Ole Miss and LSU. Both of them need a series win desperately. So it will be interesting to see what happens here in Oxford. So, all right, let's move here to our 2 segments that we do every single week. We got the Leach Coach of the Week. We love Coach Mike Leach. Rest in peace. He was the best, and we like to honor him each week by giving out a Mike Leach Coach of the Week for the coach that best exemplifies the spirit of college football, the spirit of what Mike Leach was all about, which was mentoring kids, coaching them up, coaching football well, having passion for college football, all of that good stuff. So you set this one up for us. You built it out, so I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, there's really not much connection here at all to college football or Mike Leach. I don't see Mike Leach doing what this coach/manager did, hint, ever. I mean, I would have to imagine if a fight broke out in a game that Mike Leach was coaching, he might like pull up a chair and just kind of watch.
He did,
but this is too good not to show, because this form tackle is just phenomenal. So in case you missed it, It's a big brawl between in the Braves game, I guess last night, and the manager, Walt Weiss, former baseball player, played, gosh, I remember him on the A's. I don't know who else he played for, maybe the Braves or somebody in there, but baseball lifer. And, he just puts a form tackle on Jorge Soler from the Angels, who's going after his pitcher. And who, by the way, the pitcher for the Braves, punched him with the baseball. I don't know if you saw that close up. He's swings on him, but he's holding the baseball almost like a knuckleball and just hits Soler on the side of the head with the baseball. But anyway, here's
you had a long stare that Ronaldo Lopez took exception to.
Dropped him.
That's see ball, get ball. Pursuit. He's out of the dugout. His hat's gone. Who knows where his hat is? And he sees his target and he just takes him down. The angle wasn't the best there, but I like because they pointed out who who he was. And here's another quick little picture of just the actual form tackle, a nice still saying that he's going to get signed by the Falcons. But
yeah,
he's flying. Like I said, he's just flying off the edge.
That's a bit of a spear to the crotch. But, he's trying to get head by hip, but he's kind of missing there. But he's still targeting. Got the job done. So
he's leading with the crown there.
Yeah, right. But it got the job done, man. He got him on the ground, incapacitated the guy, because as soon as that happened, one other guy jumped right on top of him and put him in a headlock. It was done.
I know. It just, again, to reiterate, he's 62 years old. What other manager do you know would be out of the dugout like that, dodging guys, shedding blocks and just laying the wood to his target? So shout out to Walt Weiss. That was awesome. Bobby Cox, legend, love him. Never would have been able to do that.
Could never. Yeah. The only other one who could have potentially done it was the guy who tried to fight Pedro Martinez.
Zimmer.
Don Zimmer. Yeah. He would have tried, but as we saw, he got completely owned. So Walt Weiss on another level.
Yeah.
Your Mike Leach Coach of the Week. Congratulations to Walt Weiss. We will get his trophy, his certificate in the mail in the next 5 years. So, all right, let's head on to our other segment that we do every single week, Biscuit of the Week. We got the Masters this week, which is fantastic. All right, so our Biscuit of the Week comes from the Masters at Augusta National Golf Club. So take us through this one. You found this one. I didn't even know they had a chicken biscuit.
I wasn't 100% sure either. So in honor of the Masters, I was looking around Augusta area restaurants for biscuits, and there was a few contenders, but then it just occurred to me the Masters probably has a chicken biscuit because they have a phenomenal snack bar menu, and you can see there, it's a little hard to see perhaps. Hopefully if y'all are watching on your TV, you can see that, but everybody knows they're famous for their prices and everything's great. But yeah, they've got a chicken biscuit there on the breakfast menu for $3. Based on the reviews I saw online, it's good, not amazing, but good. Some people were saying slightly dry. I saw somebody say get the pimento cheese sandwich and put the pimento cheese on the breakfast chicken biscuit to give it a little extra flavor and a little moisture, but
a little pizzazz.
Yeah, all I will say is, I love the Masters. I love their snack bar offering. And when Biscuits and SEC is invited to Augusta to cover the event one day, we will be sampling the chicken biscuit. So I look forward to that when it comes. Fred Ridley, who is the chairman of Augusta National, I know you're a fan. So I'll next year, you can send us an invitation in the mail, and we will be there to cover the Masters as well as try your chicken biscuits and everything else on the menu, because you can get it all for $50. So it's a no-brainer.
And Fred, if you send us your plane too, we'll be sure to give 10 out of 10 reviews across the board. So plain, invitation only, 6 and above. Plain 2, 10 out of 10s, no problem. And we'll see you at the Masters. So Fred, if you're listening out there, we'll see you next year.
See you next year, Fred. Send the NetJet or whatever you use.
Whatever it is. Yeah. Hey, that makes me want to go to the Masters even more. I mean, look, it's hard to say, I want to go to the Masters more than I already do, but with a chicken biscuit on the menu and the pimento cheese sandwich, I'm with you. I would take the pimento cheese sandwich, get that. It's like, $1.50 and a nickel.
Yeah.
For whatever, everything they have. It's like, 1940s prices. So yeah, give me 2 chicken biscuits, 2 pimento cheese sandwiches, and I'm putting the pimento on top of it, and Coke and peanuts, coffee. I don't know. We'll figure. There's all sorts of good stuff you can do there. But really cool to see they got a chicken biscuit.
100%.
All right, that is going to do it for us here at Biscuits and SEC Live. This has been our part 1 of our Super League. We will come out with part 2 here in 2 weeks. Hammer will not be with us next week, but we will find some fun to do anyway next week. But we will come out with part 2 of our Super League 2 weeks from now. We will put out some graphics talking about a little bit about what we talked about tonight. Our part 1, 24 teams, will be 24 teams that we will release in 2 more weeks. We will be on SEC After Dark tomorrow night at 9 Eastern, 8 o'clock Central. So be sure to check that out. As always, sign up for the Morning Biscuits newsletter, biscuitsandsec.com/newsletter. Everything that you want to know about what's going on in the SEC, right to your inbox every Wednesday. Free to sign up. So go ahead and check that out, biscuitsandsec.com/newsletter. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. This has been Biscuits and SEC Live, show 80. For Hammer, I'm Bossman. We will see you guys next week.
Appreciate y'all.